Looking at a developer's body of work on a platform can be super interesting. Before the internet, you'd learn to tell if a game was usually going to be worth your time by the name of the developer on the box. Now, things are a little more complicated these days, but back then, if you saw a Capcom logo on an NES game, you'd know that the game was probably going to have good music. If you saw that blue and white Sega logo, it usually meant that you're going to have that arcade experience at home. Or simply seeing the words Squaresoft meant that you were in for an epic adventure that just might change video games for you. So I thought it would be fun to take a look at a sampling of a developer's games on a specific platform to see how they were doing and where they were with their games at that point in time. In this episode, I'm going to be checking out Namco on the Genesis. During the 8-bit generation, Namco was a big supporter of the NES early on. After all, it was the home of the legendary Pac-Man, so of course any burgeoning console would want them on their side. Namco was actually the first licensee of Nintendo's system, and that earned them a sort of special treatment. Perks like being able to manufacture their own cartridges, which was a huge money saver for them. Over time, Nintendo's behemoth steamrolled all competition, and well, they got cocky. When it was time for Namco to re-sign their licensee agreement, the benefits they previously enjoyed went away. This understandably rubbed those in charge of Namco the wrong way, which prompted them to throw a huge amount of support behind Sega's newest 16-bit console. In my constant attempt at finding a game to fill a void that the lack of a decent Space Harrier port or sequel left in me, my search led me to a game called Burning Force, a third-person rail shooter that was first released in the arcades in 1989, and then was ported to the Genesis in 1990. You control a space cadet named Hiromi Tengenji, who rides a sweet-looking hoverbike as she trains to be a space fighter for the Earth University. This training takes place over the course of 5 days, each with 4 sections. The first 2 levels take place exclusively on the hoverbike, which can only move left and right. But at the start of the 3rd section, your bike is upgraded and becomes a spaceship. It's insane! You are no longer limited to a left and right movement, but now you can fly all around the screen Space Harrier style. After taking down the big boss of the day, you're treated to a nice bonus stage romp where you pick up these point bubbles, which will usually result in an extra life or 2. It's a nice way to top off a hard day's work, if you ask me. Scattered along each level are a number of different bubbles you can pick up that will alter your attack type. Stuff like wave beams, laser shots, and a wide shot. The latter being my personal favorite because it covers a huge area of the screen. You also have the requisite smart bomb attack, which clears the screen of enemies. The graphics are decent, and the scaling is fairly smooth. There's a few little animation touches that I really enjoy, like how when you lose a life, Hiromi leaps off her bike as it explodes, does a flip, and lands on another. And while the music is definitely an average affair, I always really loved the theme of the first day. It's one of those songs that stuck with me ever since I first played it. Everything else though, well, just don't ask me to pick it out on a playlist. Overall, Burning Force, just an okay game. I was fairly disappointed with it when I first played it because I looked forward to it for so long. And then I beat it the first day that I owned it. Revisiting it now, the thing I noticed the most is that unmistakable early Namco look, a look that really holds up. Man, I love the first Rolling Thunder in the arcade. Even though I could barely make it past the second area, I spent a lot of time on that cabinet. When I saw that the sequel, aptly titled Rolling Thunder II, was on its way to the Genesis in 1990, there was no hesitation on my part. Secret Agent Albatross is back, and this time he is joined by the previously captured Agent Layla Blitz. Wait, what? Yep, that's right. Rolling Thunder 2 ups the ante by adding a 2-player simultaneous mode, and it is awesome. I never imagined that a co-op mode was exactly what the first game was missing, but it's absolutely the secret sauce here. Each agent starts out equipped with only a handgun, and needless to say, ammunition for said weapons is extremely limited. But you can enter doors and take cover and acquire extra bullets. You'll also pick up alternate weapons hidden behind specific doors. Heavy-duty weapons like submachine guns, shotguns, and flamethrowers let you lay waste to the enemy henchmen who melt away when you take them out. The overall look of Rolling Thunder 2 is great. It's very obvious that it's using the game's full 8 megs of power. I always loved how spy characters from this era of games and anime were represented as being so tall and lanky. The music is appropriately espionage-y and emulates that spy atmosphere very well. I gotta say, I think that Rolling Thunder 2 is one of the best third-party games on the Genesis, and absolutely my favorite of all the games that Namco released on the system. The 2-player mode adds a ton of variety and fun. I highly recommend it. In the early years of the 16-bit console wars, there was just one game that made me sad not to have a TurboGrafx 16. That game was Splatterhouse. Let's get this out of the way first off. Growing up, I was a huge Friday the 13th fan. As a parent now, I was probably way too young to be watching those movies when I did. But it was a different time. So obviously, when I saw screenshots of Splatterhouse and EGM, I lost my mind. Wait, you mean you play as Jason in this? It was like my ultimate game, and I had no chance of playing it myself till a couple of years later when Namco brought the series over from the sinking TurboGrafx. You play as a guy named Rick, who uses the power of a demonic mask to rescue his girlfriend from a haunted house full of ghosts, demons, and other creatures. You punch and jump kick your way through a number of stages. It's really straightforward, but the real hook of the game is the blood and guts. In the pre-Mortal Kombat world that the Splatterhouse series was unleashed into, my only real experience with extreme gore in a game was chopping heads off in Sword of Sodan. This was a whole new level. Punching creatures in half, splattering them against the wall in the background with a swing of a 2x4. Now, 13-year-old Coury was probably a little too excited about this stuff, but at the time, it was unlike anything I'd ever seen. I've always loved the details of the sprites in Splatterhouse. Everything just looks all veiny and grotesque. It carries the horror theme amazingly well, but for me, it was very much an instance of style over substance. I actually didn't make it further than level 2 till recently, and to be honest, I didn't care for it in the long run. But really, Splatterhouse 2 is worth checking out just to see some of the effed up stuff in this game. Shoot 'em ups on the Genesis made up a huge portion of the console's library early on. Namco's foray into the arena was with a port of their Greek mythology-based vertical shooter called Phelios. You control the god of the sun, Apollo, who rides atop Pegasus, the winged horse, in a quest to rescue the goddess of the moon, Artemis, from a titan named Typhon. What is kind of weird is that the game portrays Apollo and Artemis as lovers, when in actual Greek mythology, the two were brother and sister. The namesake of the game is actually the sword that Apollo wields. A quick button press shoots a single shot, while holding down the button allows you to charge up your sword for a much powerful, larger attack. Phelios is actually a fairly standard shooter of the era, but it does have a few things that set it apart to make it something special. Like, I really love that you have a life bar instead of a typical one-hit kill. This game gets intense later on, so you're definitely going to need those extra hits. Another big thing is the setting itself. In a sea of space shooters, moving to an ancient Greek setting was a huge breath of fresh air. Everything looks amazing, from lush valleys to lava rivers, and finally, outer space? Didn't I just say it was different than other space shooters? Sure, it's a little weird that Artemis slowly loses her clothing throughout the course of the game, but the cutscenes between each level are pretty neat. And get this, they are fully voiced. How crazy is that? Sure, it sounds awful. I have no idea how this didn't blow my mind when I was a kid. I received 2 Genesis games for Christmas in 1990, Phelios and a game called Hellfire. Both were among the most difficult shooters I've ever encountered. Out of those 2, Phelios is the only one I found myself going back to. It's super hard, but it's a really great game. So, there you go. A nice sampling of some of Namco's games on the Genesis. If I had to just pick one that I felt you should hunt down, well, that would be easy. Rolling Thunder 2 for sure. If you're interested in checking out some of the others, well, you should know that some can get a bit pricey. So what was your favorite game by Namco on the Genesis? There were a bunch that I didn't list here, so I'd love to hear what you pick. Till next time, thanks for watching.